Hello guys, welcome to another session on TestNG, and in this session we will look at TestNG listeners, right? So what are these listeners? So if you remember, until now in all our previous video sessions, we have seen whenever if we want to log something to the console, we were actually making use of system.out.println message or methods from Java to track the progress of our test execution, or to mark either whether a particular validation has been passed or not, or a particular test case has completed execution or not, right? So we manually entered those statements to capture the progress of the test execution on the console in a message format, right? So say suppose we had only one or two test cases where we were able to write these statements and log that information or progress onto our consoles, right? What if we have some around 400 or 500 test cases or even more than that? So is it advised to write each of these logging statements in all those test cases, right? Now I actually ideally using system.out.println in test cases is not advised. So we should most of the time avoid these adding these system.out.println statements in our test code, right? So besides this system.out.println provided by Java, we have certain other libraries, log4j and some other libraries which we use for logging the information, right? Maybe logger dot, we'll create an object of logger or log4j, and we will make use of those methods like info.debug, etc. kind of methods to log the message to our console, right? Similarly, like using some third-party library like log4j, right? TestNG itself has a certain logging mechanism, right? And that mechanism is provided in the form of interfaces. Okay, so the interfaces, what these interfaces do, so they will simply listen to every event fired up whenever we run any test case or test cases, right? Every action TestNG takes off from the test execution till the completion of that test execution. It listens to every step performed by us, and it, if required, enables us to print those whatever it is listening to the console. Okay, and we have couple of interfaces to provide that functionality, and here I have listed couple of them, if not I would say most of them, right? And these are all those interfaces. So these are all the types of listeners TestNG provides. So here the beginning of I indicates that this is an interface. So the concept of Java, interface concept of Java means whenever we want to implement these interfaces, we have to provide body to the methods it is providing. Okay, we will take a look at each one of or at least couple of these listeners, and try to implement and log some information to the console. Okay, but before further going into, we will look at some of we will talk about some of these listeners, right? So ITestListener is something monitors individual test method events, and it can also be used to perform certain actions like taking screenshots upon test failure, or something like that. Okay, so we will implement this interface, and we will see some code over there to prove that. Okay, and these ITestResult, ITestContext can be used as some of the can be used as arguments to some of these methods which we have to implement under ITestListener. Okay, and ITestContext, using ITestContext, there is another advantage, which is like if we want to pass data from one test case to another test case, right, in a single run, then we can make use of ITestContext, and we can save certain values in the form of key value pairs, and wherever test case that is required, we can call that key to get the value we want to use in some other test case, right. We might not be seeing it. If possible, I will make a separate video for that, maybe after this video. But the main advantage of ITestContext is share the data between multiple test cases within a single session or single test execution. Okay, ISuiteListener, as the name says, it listens to whatever actions or I would say, like, whenever a suit starts and whenever a suit ends, it listens to that information and prints to the console, right, if we enable them. Similarly, IClassListener, IReporter is to generate the HTML reports, or we can make this IReporter to actually print on the console in a desired format also, right. Until now we were seeing some test summary, like number of test cases passed, failed, skipped, like that, but we can customize that report as well and have our own implementation of that report. Okay, and IExecutionListener, so this monitors the start and end of the entire TestNG process. Whenever we start the test, it will listen to that, and whenever the test ends or the TestNG finishes the execution, it will listen to that as well. And if we want, we can log that information also. IDataProviderListener is used whenever we are making use of any data providers. Okay, and so these are the out of these, I mean, not even all of these will be used in our real-time projects, but a majority of the time these first three are the ones which we will be using a lot at our workplaces, which is ITestListener, ITestResult, ITestContext. Okay, and the rest all we will be avoiding. I wouldn't say avoid, but we will there is no necessity to actually use those. But if we want to use them as an extra logging purposes, yes, we can make use of these other interfaces also, right. And so like I said, main purpose is like we can track when a test case starts execution, and when a test execution ends, when the next test execution starts and the next test execution ends. All this logging information we can get from these first three interfaces itself. Okay, so what are the main methods that we are supposed to implement whenever we want to use ITestListener, right? So these are a couple of the methods which we should be implementing whenever we want to log some information results on the test execution. Okay, so like I said, ITestResult, ITestContext can be used as arguments to the methods within this ITestListener interface. Okay, so let us write a new class, and in that new class we will override these methods, and we will customize our customize these logging with our messages. Okay, now let's go to IntelliJ. Alright, we have this test class which we have used in our previous session assertion, and we can make use of this same test. And like I said, we now have to implement ITestListener, so let us create a new class. Okay, new class, and I will say TestNG Listener. Yeah, TestNG Listener. So we have created that class, and like I said, we have to implement ITestListener, so we will write the keyword implements, and we'll write it over ITestListener. So this is the interface that we want to implement, and to see what are all the methods that are available under this interface, we can right click on that interface and select option generate, and within that generate we can select override methods, and in this we can select the methods that we want to override. So in this case we can select on test start, on test success, on test failure, on test script, and on start, on finish. Okay, we can implement these methods. So there are two other methods that are available which I am skipping, but we can make use of those as well if we want to. Okay, so the one which is here which we left is on test failed but within success percentage. So what does this method do is it will execute the same test case the number of times we define or we ask it to, and every time it either passes or fails, it note downs the status and finally compares with the expected pass percentage we have defined to that. Say suppose there are 5 test cases, and out of 5 we want the pass, sorry, say there is one test which we want to execute 5 times, and the pass ratio or the pass percentage we're expecting is at least 80%. Then that what this method will do is it will run the same test 5 times, and if that fails once, then even then it will mark it as pass. Say suppose if the test iteration fails twice, which is more than 20% or less than 80%, in that case that will mark the test as failure. If time permits, we can take a look at this method also, but this is not that often used during our real-time projects, but for the concept learning concept wise, we can take a look at that. And on test failed with timeout, so this one, if anything fails by timing out, then that locks that. Okay, so for now I'm ignoring these two, but remaining 6 we will try to implement. Right, I click OK, and here this is the one. So every method has some body within that, but we can go ahead and provide our custom message over there. So for that purposes, what I will do is I will comment out this particular line and write over our own message. Right, since the name of the method is on test start, we can say something like started the test, and we can print the name of the test, and that name will get it from this argument object, which is result dot get test name or get name, right? We can use test name also, right? Similarly, we will copy down and write the same below here. On test success, so for this I will say test success and the test name. Let's comment this out. On test failure, test fail, and comment this test script, and on start and here we will be using context, context dot get name. Alright, so what we are saying here is, right, every beginning of each test we want these details, right, whether the test has been passed, failed or not, all this information to log to the console, right? So let us now run this, or even before that let us run and look at the console. If I am not wrong, this is the plain console that we look currently without the implementation of this class, right? So this is the only information that is getting printed to the console. So I think this is, let us take a screenshot of this one and compare this with the new console, which in order to make use of this listener we have to make some changes in the testng.xml, that is at suite level. We will implement listeners and listener, and we have to give the class name, which is TestNG Listener, right? And this particular TestNG is going to run this test class, which is assertion test. So let us run this one now. Right now we see that we have some additional information that got printed onto the console. So here nothing from the test, but in test we have given some system.out.println messages, but that is just for our testing purposes. But other than that, the main logging information is coming from the TestNG Listener class, where if you look at this one, the test start is coming from the IContext when the TestNG started executing, and have to update this on test finish, test start, and started the test. So let us run this again one more time. So test start valid login test, so that is the name of the test that we are doing, that we are testing, and that information is coming from this one valid login test. So this is the test context that is getting executed, and started the test, which is coming from this first one, started the test, and result dot get name is bringing up this information, which is place order online. So this is the method name that got printed by which means it is saying this test is now about to be executed. Okay, now since all these validations passed, we are logging this as test success, and the method that passed is place order online method. Okay, once that is done, it is again printing test finish, which is saying that this whatever test tag test cases have been completed execution, right? So that's what we are seeing, and this is the information. So let us now see what happens if we deliberately fail this one, right? We'll add something to the expected message, right, which is not equivalent to what the actual message. So that makes this test failure, and we will see whether it gets a test success message or test failed message this time, right? So this time we didn't see test success message, but we saw test failed method, which has come from this method which is on test failure. Previously when test passed, it executed this one, but now when the test failed, it is executing this method over here. And since it is the hard assert which we used, the test execution stopped there itself, and it finally printed test finished with failure status, right? So this is about this one. What if we have multiple test cases? So multiple test cases, for that I will copy it down over here, and I will duplicate, I will change this name, or maybe place order online. Let us say something such item online, right? Such item online, and we will keep these messages as is, and user login searching for an item, and we will remove this messages, and we will say system print, and we will say search is working fine. Okay, and now let us run this, and we will make these two test cases pass. Right? Now look at the messages that are getting printed, right? Test start method, like valid login test and test finished. So valid login test from TestNG, it got these names, that is looking good. Test started the test, place order online, and the status of the test is success. Then the second test started the new test, which is such item online, and it is also success, the test success. And here we can see total test runs as 2, passes 2, failures 0, skips 0. All right, so now what if we want to see one skip example as well, right? We can, for that we can add one more method. Right, for this method what we will do is say skip test, and let us remove all these things, and we will make this test to get skipped. So for that we can use this exception, we can add this skip exception here, TION skip exception, and here we can give some argument saying skipping the test, right? Skipping the test. Now let us see, we should get the information related to 3 test methods this time, right? So now we have information here, test started, valid login test, that is looking good. This is our first test case. this is our second test case. Both the test cases has this success message, and the third test case started, which is skip test, right? Skip test is the name we gave to our third method over here. It started and the test skipped, and this particular message is coming from here on test skip. We are saying like test skipped and the name of the method, right? So this way we can implement these listeners, and this is the most commonly used interface for logging additional information, which in some of its messages uses ITestResult and ITestContext interfaces to get more information related to those test cases that are getting executed. Okay, and for this also we can implement here. For now we have passed this information here in the testng.xml, but the same without giving here, right? So we can comment this. All right, we will comment or we have commented this listener information or configuration in testng.xml, and we will go to testng.xml and we directly implement that here at the class level using another annotation as listeners, and specifying the listener class we want to use, testng listener dot class, right? Since we have this, we want to test only on a single class, we are giving this annotation here at the class level. But if we want to do it for other classes as well, then we have to implement the same thing on all the class names. Okay, and in testng.xml we still have this commented out, but we specified the class name as assertion test. Now let us run this and we have to see the same result. We are expecting to see the same result now, and as you see we can still see the same information getting logged even if we specify the listeners at class level. Okay, so the best practice is always using listeners from testng.xml, or defining what to use at testng.xml but not at class level, because in real time we will be having multiple, sometimes hundreds of test classes, and it is not advised to go and add above each test class. Instead we can simply come over to our testng.xml and write that under suite, and there need not have to be only one test listener, but there can be like more more listeners too. Say suppose, let us quickly implement one more listener over here. Okay, I'm adding new test class over here as suite test suite listener. Okay, TestNG suite listener, right? And this implements ISuiteListener, right? This implements ISuiteListener, and let's add the methods here: generate, override, and it has only two, on start and on finish, and we will implement them. And here we will, what we will do is we will comment this out and write system.out.println and something as test suite start, and we want to print the suite name, suite dot get name. Okay, and let's copy it down here and comment this out, and to test to suit finished, right? Suit dot get name again. Now since we have another TestNG suite listener or TestNG listener, what we have to do is to make use of this information, right? Until now we are not seeing this message here, test suite started, anywhere in our console, but once after implementing this one we will get to see that as well. So TestNG suite listener, right? Now let us run this. Now we see test suite started. Now and the before one IContext has given, that is which is this one ITestContext has given a test level information, but since we started suite listener as well, now it is giving from the suite level information. And how do we know that? We know that from the suite name that is getting printed onto the console, which is annotation test. So this is now started giving us suite level information as well, right? So this is how we will be using listeners to have extra logging information, and to differentiate between different test cases by getting the names of those test cases during runtime. So likewise we will be implementing listeners, and we will try to log information at a test level, at a suite level, at a class level, and if and also sometimes at data provider level. Okay, so I hope you understood the concept, and it will be initially hard to understand, but once after you get the concept, then you will be able to implement any of these listeners in your code. All right, that's all for this video, and see you in the next one.